This is the, here's the mission statement for the State Parks Department, which you can see is very much in line with this project in that it is designed to protect the most valued natural and cultural resources, water quality of the river and Lake Tahoe, while also creating opportunities for high quality outdoor recreation in the Lake Valley State Recreation Area, specifically the Lake Tahoe Golf Course. Here's the guidelines for tonight's meeting. You will all be muted during the presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, please click on the hand icon, which is under the reactions button. And we will unmute you and call on you to speak either during or after the presentation. For written questions or comments, we actually use the chat feature. If you want to type a question during the presentation or to make a comment at the end of the presentation, click on the chat, type your question in the bar, and we will try to answer those questions during the presentation, but those not addressing the scoping effort will be answered at a later date. For oral scoping comments at the end of the presentation, we will open the comment period and we'll ask you to use the raise hand feature and we will call on you to speak. And please note this meeting is being recorded, both audio and visual, and the recording will be posted on the State Parks website, and we'll show you the address for that a little bit later. So just briefly going over the overview of the presentation, we'll have a brief discussion of the purpose of this meeting. We'll introduce the agencies involved and the personnel involved and their roles in the process. We will talk about the scoping process and then the environmental process for both State Parks and TRPA. We'll give a little history of the project and the past environmental reviews done for it. And we'll talk about the EIR process, the environmental impact report process, and then finally, how to comment. So introductions, I'm Matt Trask. I'm with EIR Consulting, which is the environmental consultant to State Parks. Also from EIR is Chris Stavenfeld, who's the project director. From State Parks, which is the lead agency under the California Environmental Quality Act, also called CEQA. They are also the trustee agency and the applicant in this case. We have Cindy Walk, who's an engineering geologist who has been involved in this project from the very beginning, quite a while now. And we also have Dan Canfield, who is the Sierra District Superintendent. And from TRPA, Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, we have Shannon Friedman, planner. And Shannon, if you want to give a little bit of detail about the TRPA.
Sure, thank you, Matt. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Shannon Friedman with the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. A little bit of background for those of you not familiar with TRPA. We were established in 1969 as the nation's first bi-state regional planning agency. And our mission is to cooperatively lead the effort to preserve, restore, and enhance the unique natural and human environment in Lake Tahoe. Part of that mission is leading the environmental improvement program, which is a cooperative effort to achieve environmental thresholds that the TRPA have to improve the human and natural environment. This project, the Upper Truckee River Restoration and Golf Course Realignment Project, is a high priority environmental improvement program project. It is a series of projects along the Upper Truckee River that aim to restore priority meadows, wetlands, and Lake Tahoe tributaries to improve habitat for wildlife, vegetation, and the water quality and clarity of Lake Tahoe. The environmental document is a joint document with CEQA and TRPA. We have our, under the compact, our own rules and our own environmental document process. So this will be an environmental impact statement for TRPA as well. And in addition to this public scoping meeting, we are also going to have 2 more public hearings where we will accept public comment on the environmental document. One is at the February 23rd TRPA Governing Board meeting, and the other one will be at the March 9th TRPA Advisory Planning Commission meeting. So if you're interested in attending those meetings, please go to the TRPA website when it gets closer to those for more information on how to participate and attend those meetings. And I will be on throughout the duration of this presentation if there are questions related to TRPA. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. So the scoping process purpose is to inform the public and responsible agencies about an upcoming project for which an EIR, EIS will be prepared, this project specifically, and is to inform the public about the environmental review process, what steps we will take as we go through the EIR process. And also, as part of the scoping process, we are soliciting input from you all regarding potential alternatives to the proposed project and the appropriate scope of issues to be studied in the EIR, EIS. We also want to identify issues of concern and areas of potential controversy. And the environmental process is also to inform and gather input from decision makers, in this case, state parks and TRPA, and the general public regarding the potential impacts and the benefits of a project. We will analyze the effects of the project. We have a series of experts, scientists who will look at the various technical areas. I'll show that in a bit. And then we'll document those findings in the draft EIR, EIS. We'll release that to the public. We'll hold additional meetings to take oral comments and then, of course, take written comments as well from the public and agencies. We will then conduct more analysis if warranted, and then publish a final EIR, EIS. I briefly mentioned before the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, which requires all state agencies to consider the environmental impacts of any decision they make. And then Shannon discussed briefly the TRPA relevant ordinances and the planning compact. Also mentioned that there are project websites on which we will post the scoping report, we will produce that for this meeting to show the kind of comments received and the issues that people are saying are important to look at. We also post all the noticing that is done. For instance, the notice of preparation for the environmental impact report is already posted. And then we'll put both the draft and the final EIR, EIS on the website as well. Here's a simple flow chart for the process. We're right now in that gray box, the scoping process. We've already started the Native American consultation process that's required under Assembly Bill 52. That will continue through the EIR, EIS process. Once the scoping report is done, we will fully develop the project description, which will be a detailed description of every feature of the project, as well as more of the how it will be done. And also discussion of the screening or the alternatives, which is right below there. We will do a screening of alternatives to consider all alternatives, reject those that are not appropriate, and then carry forward the ones that are appropriate. We will then prepare the draft EIR, EIS. There will be a 45-day review period after that, and then we'll prepare the final EIR, EIS. And then state parks and TRPA will make their decisions whether to approve or disapprove the project. Brief history of the past environmental analysis that was conducted for this project. State Parks released an EIR in 2010 that examined a similar project. However, that one involved moving golf courses into the Washoe Meadows State Park. This one does not. The 2010 EIR did not select a preferred project. But State Parks did certify the EIR. They later decertified the EIR following a lawsuit brought by the Washoe Meadows Community Group. And then in 2018, State Parks released a preferred alternative 2B and additional environmental analysis document, the PAAEA, in response to the 2010 court decision. And then that document was later withdrawn once they made the decision to prepare an all-new EIR, EIS. So with that, I'm going to turn over the podium to Cindy, and she can talk about the proposed project.
Hi, welcome everyone. I'm Cindy Walk. I'm a fluvial geomorphologist. I specialize in stream and meadow restoration for California state parks. I've been working on this project, I don't know, for about 15 years, and I'm really excited to try and move forward on this restoration for the river. So in general, the project involves restoring the Upper Truckee River to a geomorphically functional condition by reversing a lot of the past impacts that have straightened the river and have disconnected it from its floodplain. So the river would have a more natural configuration. The channel would be lengthened, the bed would be raised to reconnect it to its floodplain. That would result in reduced velocity, that would result in reduced erosion and sediment delivery to Lake Tahoe. And it also, so it's a great opportunity. But to make room for this restoration work, the golf course needs to be reconfigured as stated within Lake Valley State Recreation Area. We own two contiguous units, Lake Valley State Recreation Area, and directly to the west of it is Washoe Meadow State Park, both obtained at the same time by state parks, but the division is based on the operation of the golf course. So Lake Valley State Recreation Area is where the golf course is located. So the holes would be rebuilt to allow room for the river restoration and flooding. And it also gives us the opportunity to really revitalize and update the existing golf course with more drought-resistant turf, with more efficient irrigation. It also gives the opportunity to increase public access both to the river and to Washoe Meadow State Park. Next, Matt. Next, Matt. There we go. So just a quick look at what in visuals this means. So right now, the river is incised or down cut, so it does not get out onto what used to be its floodplain. The golf course occupies what is a former floodplain. There's no buffer zone, there's no riparian habitat. Desired condition in the lower right, just in case you didn't know which one was desired, sorry, is to have a connected floodplain, a high water table that then supports that riparian vegetation, overbanking, sediment deposition. So just a visual of the difference between the two. Next. So generally, again, the goals are to restore the river and the riparian habitat and the in-stream habitat to a natural functional condition. That in turn will reduce sediment and improve Lake Tahoe's water quality. We want to revitalize, update the golf course. We want to increase the recreational access and connectivity, and all of that will in turn support our local economy as well. Next, Matt. But so how did we get here? What's the problem? Long history of disturbance on the river. There's about 1.5 miles of the river that runs through the state parks. Back in the 1800s, for the Comstock era, they transported logs down the river, took out a bunch of the meanders, took out all the snags. All of the meadows within the basin were heavily grazed during that period. A lot of manual straightening, just taking out the meanders to make the river flow faster, to decrease flooding. A lot of gravel mining, and then subsequent development. The golf course, so when they straightened the river, they increased its energy, it downcut, lost connectivity with the floodplain, and then the golf course was constructed on what I'm calling the river's former floodplain between 1958 and 1962. Former because it was no longer an active floodplain. It floods maybe once every 10 to 15 years, but not on the kind of the 2-year recurrence that we would like to see. That is a natural pattern. So we obtained the property in 1984. We inherited the golf course, and it's currently leased to American Golf as our concessionaire. The lower right-hand picture is just a picture of the mouth of the Upper Truckee River, which is a large sediment producer into the lake. Next. So again, just summarizing the problems: an unstable river, a lot of erosion, with sediment, degrades water quality, lacks habitat, and the golf course then impacts the river by not only occupying the floodplain with no buffer, but we also have a whole series of 5 bridges that are undersized. They lock the river in place, they increase erosion. So that lower left-hand, I'm a little dyslexic, but I think I got that right. Left-hand picture basically shows the situation now. The bank full flow, or your 2-year-ish flow, should be out on that floodplain, but instead it's confined within the channel, and it essentially undercuts all the sod. So you can see the sod falling into the river. So that the high flows, the annual high flows that should be out, spreading out, filling up that meadow floodplain, are just have a lot of erosive force and just tend to undercut the banks and drop the sod right into the river. Next. So what do we want to do? So essentially, restoring the river, giving it back a more natural function, would reduce the erosion. It would improve the water quality. We would reconnect it to the floodplain, which in turn would raise that water table up, connect it back to that riparian sponge that then supports the riparian habitat and that vegetation. And we would reduce those golf course impacts by moving the holes away from the edge of the river, allowing room for the river meanders, allowing room for that riparian habitat and buffer, and we would replace those bridges. So again, on the lower left-hand side, you can see the bank full would then be able to spread out. Instead of being right at the base of the roots, it would be out on the floodplain and filling up that meadow sponge or that riparian sponge and supporting vegetation. Next. And this project is a top priority for the Tahoe Basin. It's a top priority under the Environmental Improvement Program. It's one of the largest producers of sediment into Lake Tahoe, along with the Marsh Reach and the couple other reaches on the upper Truckee River. And it's part of a multi-agency collaborative, coordinated effort to restore the river all the way from Christmas Valley down to the lake. So by trying to bring back this natural function of the river and its ecosystem, building a curvy or sinuous channel that's connected to the floodplain, that would improve that habitat. And we need to make room for those meanders. In the lower figure, the area kind of outlined in yellow, the upper Truckee River comes in from the south and flows to the north and northeast. And as it comes out of Christmas Valley, it comes out of a glacially defined valley and then spreads out into Washoe Meadows. And those holes outlined in yellow are the most critical for us to relocate or make room for the river in. So to make room for the river, to make room for the meanders, to do the restoration, it requires moving golf course holes away from the river. Next. Next, yeah, got it. So, okay, so we have ongoing erosion due to the river. We have ongoing erosion next to the golf course. We're constantly replacing pipes. It's eroding into the infrastructure, and the infrastructure itself is dilapidated. It's dated. It's requires a lot of deferred maintenance. Many golf course facilities, in that little chart you can see there, have a lifespan of 10 to 15, 20 years, something like that. Our golf course is over 60 years old. It's had pretty minimal investment, and a lot of things are really in need of updating. It was built again between 1958 and 1962, so it needs reinvestment. Next. So we propose to reconfigure the golf course holes out of the area adjacent to the river. It would have a similar slope, par, and yardage to the existing course. That dilapidated irrigation system that they are constantly band-aiding would be replaced with a more efficient irrigation system, saving water. The coarse turf, the greens, would be replaced with more modern turf, more modern drought-resistant species. The porta potty would be replaced with new plumbed restrooms, and we would continue to have an affordable golf course for both the local community and our visitors to the basin. Next. So the current layout, you can see here, again, the holes that are most critical are holes 10, 11, 12, and part of 18, because they occupy where the river would have a much broader area of meadow. And next. Next, Matt. And this is the proposed layout. So the hatched area is essentially what would be restored floodplain area. The river would be given a more curvy or sinuous pattern. The golf course would be configured within Lake Valley State Recreation Area, which is outlined in the yellow there. The golf allowable area, or the area where the golf course could be configured within, is totally within Lake Valley State Recreation Area. It's outlined in the pink. The layout you see here was designed by Forrest Richardson, who is used to be the president of the American Society of Golf Course Architects, I think it's the right term. So he's a renowned golf course designer. However, the layout could change over time. It just needs to stay within this pink area, allow for the river buffer zone, and not exceed the basically the footprint area of the or the amount of turf that we are analyzing in this document. But as we go forward, some of the river may change in the couple of years between now and when we build things, which may have some impacts as well on the golf course layout. Next, Matt. So in addition, by removing some of those bridges, having less holes cross the river, especially in that downstream reach, we would be able to open up more of the river for public use. Because right now the river is closed. It's got golf playing back and forth over the river. And also Washoe Meadow State Park, adjacent to Lake Valley on the west, has no public entrance or access from Highway 50. So our goal is to improve that connectivity and access. Next. So we would open up about a half-a-mile section of the river. And it also gives us the opportunity to make room for a new ADA accessible trail along the river. It would connect from Highway 50 and the existing bike trail along Highway 50 to a new recreational bridge. A shared use bridge that we would build that would be shared use between golf and pedestrians or recreational use. It would tie into a network of trails in Washoe Meadow State Parks. It gives us the opportunity also to have picnic sites, parking, and a new trailhead then off of Highway 50. Next. Other alternatives that we were going to consider would be stabilizing the river in its current configuration. That would be a much more engineered project. Engineered stabilization of both the bed and the banks would require a fair bit of rock to line the bed and the banks. We've tried spot treatments of just stabilizing, but if you don't treat the whole system, it will find the next weak spot. So you need to actually treat the whole reach with an engineered stabilization approach. It would reduce erosion. It would reduce sediment input and improve water quality by having less sediment eroded into the river and into the lake. It would require less modifications to the golf course. It would still replace those undersized bridges and add the new restroom. It would not, however, allow for reconnection of the floodplain, and those habitat benefits associated with that would not increase the buffer, the riparian buffer, and it would not leave room for the ADA trail connection, but it is a feasible alternative. Next. I'm going to give it back to you, Matt.
Thank you, Cindy. Just a brief announcement here. I've seen several people join the presentation late. Just to let everybody know, we will be repeating this whole process at 6 o'clock. So if you missed a presentation, you could join us then. We will also post the presentation on the project website, so you can look through it at any time. So just reviewing the tentative schedule, we've already started, are about to start the Native American consultation. We've started the preliminary process. We'll actually start the consultation in February. The scoping period is actually inaccurate there. My apologies. It's January 14th through March 15th, I believe. TRPA, as Shannon mentioned earlier, we'll have 2 hearings on this, 2 scoping meetings, I should say, on February 23rd and March 9th. The details of that will be on the TRPA website as well as on the State Parks website. We plan to release the draft EIR for a 45-day comment period this coming fall, 2022. We will hold public meetings again, just like this one, or possibly even in person by then. And we will take comments there. As I mentioned before, we will review the comments. We'll conduct any additional analysis if warranted, and release the final EIR in the winter of 2022, not 2023, excuse me. Well, actually, I guess it would be like January 2023. And then in the spring 2023, State Parks will make a decision on whether to certify the final ER and project description and to approve the project, as will TRPA. For some reason it's not going down here. There we go. So talked a little bit about the EIS, EIR. The contents will include a detailed description of the existing baseline conditions. We call that the environmental setting. We will then disclose the potential environmental impacts of the project, both on human health and the environment, and then also on the alternatives that we will carry forward for analysis, one of which is the one Cindy just mentioned, the stabilize in place. And we will propose measures to reduce or avoid significant impacts, all those mitigation measures. And this, again, the purpose is to provide technically sound information for decision makers to consider in evaluating the proposed project and make their decision on whether to approve. So these are the technical areas that we will examine in the EIR, EIS. You can see there's about, I believe, 17 of them. Some of the more important ones, of course, will be aesthetics. We want to make sure that we don't ruin any of the scenic values of both the state park and the recreation area. We'll, of course, be looking very closely at biological resources, cultural resources, hydrology and water quality, of course, be very large. And then recreation, we will actually do an analysis of recreation and tribal cultural resources. Mentioned this before, the EIR and the EIS will also examine as many alternatives as we think are appropriate. Each alternative should be designed to meet the project objectives, at least as many as possible. And also look at whether those alternatives could eliminate, avoid, or reduce impacts of the proposed project, but they must be feasible as well, which includes cost of the project. The no project alternative will also be considered, and for that is we will do actually an environmental analysis of the impacts that will continue to occur with the project as it is, the continued erosion and resultant effect on clarity of Lake Tahoe. And then also we'll do the stabilize in place alternative will be examined to the same level as the proposed project. Other alternatives may be developed though as a result of this scoping process. We'll be taking your comments here shortly. This is a little guidance here on what we consider effective scoping and less effective scoping comments. We're looking, of course, at information that people have largely because of your location and experience with the recreation area in the state park. We'll be looking at comments about the location and extent of probable environmental impacts of the proposed project. We would like to hear about specific topics that you think should be discussed in the EIR and any mitigation measures that could reduce impacts, as well as the alternatives that could reduce impacts of the proposed project. Less effective comments are those that suggest a general topic of discussion in the EIR or suggest a vague alternative, and those that speak to the merit of the project, whether you like it or don't like it, are also less effective. Alan, I see you have your hands up. We'll call you in just a second. So for commenting, we will take comments tonight via Zoom in the chat function. And also if you raise your hand, we'll call on you and we'll unmute you and you can speak. You can also mail your comments to me at that address that you see there at our office in Rockland. And you can email me at that address as well. Here I got it right, and the comments are due by March 15th. And you can read the project notices at the State Parks website there and at TRPA's website. And then there's also a specific website that was produced by the agencies involved. That's restoreuppertruckee.net.
And Matt, I just want to add to that. So we're having 2 sessions tonight. The second presentation will start at 5:30 or 6. Is it 6?
6 o'clock.
And it will be an identical session. So if you make a comment during this session, you don't need to comment again during that one because they will all be recorded from this session. So they're just a repeat for people who can't make the earlier time period.
Yes, thank you. So if you would like to make an oral comment, just click on the raise hand feature. I think we have 2 people now, Alan and Lynn, who would like to do an oral comment or a question, and now a third person, Christine. If you'd like to do written comments, Zoom used to have a Q&A feature that's no longer there, so we ask that you use the chat feature. I'll update that for the second session. So if you want to do a written comment, you can write it into the chat box and we will record that, and that will be part of the record. And as I mentioned, you can also email or mail comments, and they're due by March 15th. So with that, we'll start taking oral comment in the order that they're received. So if we can unmute Alan and let him speak. Alan, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Alan Carlton. I'm speaking on behalf of the Sierra Club's State Parks Committee, which is a part of the California Conservation Committee. We're encouraged that the project will not change Washoe Meadows State Park boundaries for the purpose of golf course expansion. Our committee meets monthly to address issues and concerns. Among those have been the placement of the golf course in the state park unit, Washoe Meadows, and encroachment of OHV uses at Tesla Park. We've opposed these invasive proposals because we support the principle that wild and dispersed recreation values of the park system should not be infringed on by economic benefit or general fund revenues, or the need for general fund revenues. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the scoping for this project. The project outline mentions multifunctional uses for the clubhouse and integration within the park. Information analysis of these plans, including proposed bridges and restrooms, should be included in the environmental analysis. That analysis should include climate change impacts. Natural resources must be preserved and expanded to protect carbon sequestration. Surveys of resources in the project area, including both the state park and state recreation units, are necessary. After hearing the presentation today, we plan to comment further. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Yes, we do encourage you to do written comments as well, since sometimes the recording doesn't catch everything that everybody says. So with that, we'll go to Lynn Paulson. Can we unmute Lynn, please?
Hello, my name is Lynn Paulson. I'm the chair of Washoe Meadows Community, a grassroots nonprofit organization and a coalition of conservation groups, volunteer activists, and supporters from across the state. We formed in 2006 to protect the natural, cultural, and recreational resources of Washoe Meadows State Park. Despite what you said about ineffective comment, I think it is appropriate that we thank you for outlining a conceptual plan for the project of river restoration and golf course redesign that complies with the direction of the California Park and Recreation Commission. We have a few thoughts on topics that we believe deserve analysis in the EIR as represented by these questions. How have the biological resources in the project area been reviewed, and how will negative impacts be avoided? With the recent concerns about fire danger, how will fire risks be minimized during and after project implementation? What access points will be used for construction, and what analysis has been done on traffic impacts? What activities will take place in Washoe Meadows State Park related to the project, including the locations, duration, and impacts? Was a suitable range of alternatives considered so as to determine how best to avoid significant impacts? How is recreation in Washoe Meadows impacted during and after the project? And if there's completion of suitable and adequate studies and analysis on these, that will help ensure that the project recommended by state parks is fully explained and transparent so the public can support it. We did appreciate hearing more about the project and process today, and after considering that and other requested information, we'll submit written comments, although it's unclear whether they're due by February 28th or the March date. Thank you for your consideration of these questions that we believe should be among those that define the scope of the environmental review. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Yes, we will accept your comments up through March 15th. And I can say that all of the issues that you mentioned will be examined in the EIR.
Thank you.
So let's go to Christine Russell. Can we unmute Christine, please?
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm Chrissy Russell. I'm grateful that the new draft conceptual plan for the Upper Truckee River Restoration Project will restore the river and reconfigure the golf course with no encroachment into Washoe Meadows State Park. So thank you to everyone who has made this new plan possible. And I just want to mention 4 areas of concern. The first is wildfire risk. In light of the recent Caldor fire, please analyze and disclose what effect the project will have on fire risk. Will the project increase or decrease fire risk in Washoe Meadows State Park and the surrounding neighborhoods? My second concern is about biological resources. During the recent Caldor fire, a lot of upland areas were burned. This puts greater value on wildlife habitats in the river corridor. So please analyze the impact of the project on biological resources within the river corridor. My third concern is on river water quality. How will the golf course be maintained? Will the golf course rely on integrated pest management or pesticide applications? And what impact will that have on water quality in the river and ultimately the lake? Finally, recreational resources. Can you take a look at the impact of the project on recreational resources and the construction? What impact will that have? Is there a traffic plan? What are the ingress and egress points? Are we going to take the shortest route to have less disturbance in the park? Will parts of the park and trails be closed during construction? And how will the public be informed of those closures? And those are my concerns. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Christine. Next up is Grace Anderson. Can we unmute Grace, please? Grace is still.
Do you want to go to Lisa, Matt?
Sure, we're apparently having technical
I am
issues there.
here, but I'll
There's
wait for
Grace.
the next slot or whatever. I'm sorry, I couldn't get the screen to unmute me at my
Ah.
end.
Yeah, go ahead, Grace.
All right, well, my name is Grace Anderson. I'm a resident of Myers and a participant in the river restoration golf course regulatory process since the first meetings were held. And from this experience, I truly understand how significant your work is here today. So thus, I want to begin first by acknowledging the State Parks Commission for directing that river restoration should take place without change to the state park boundaries. Second, applauding the golf course staff and designer Forrest Richardson for creating an innovative design of the 18-hole course within the current footprint. And third, thanking the state parks staff for proposing and choosing a preferred alternative as represented in the conceptual plan. This is a project that could be supported by many diverse interests of the local and tourism community if the environmental review is technically sound and the project is implemented as it appears to be portrayed in the plan. I am personally grateful for this. Toward the goal of this successful environmental review, I support the input you have received from others speaking today, and I make two specific additional requests. These are necessary to quickly move beyond a conceptual graphic to the details of actual project design. And I specifically point out that the NOP says the project will take place in the 169-acre SRA and portions of the 608-acre state park. No further specification of actions or their locations is yet provided. And that makes it hard for us to know what is going to happen where. So to address this, I urge two things in the environmental review. Scoping should include direction that the EIR will develop a matrix of activities, locations, potential impacts, and mitigation options and timing for all actions to occur within the boundary of Washoe Meadows Park. This needs to be known at the outset and tracked as the project evolves in order for assessment of impacts to be completed in an accurate and timely manner. My second scoping request is that you quantify and clarify precisely what is occurring with the bridging of the river and the impacts from those bridges. This would include identification of the characteristics of bridges removed, bridges reconstructed, bridges added, the materials, the usages, the dimensions, and the purposes of each bridge. And I could be wrong about this, but given the tiny bit that I've been able to read and look at the conceptual plan, part of me thinks that there could be as many as 5 bridges included. I could be wrong about that. That's why we're here to learn. And that's of a scale that extends over the floodplain. These would be in concert with the El Dorado County proposed bridge upstream and the existing Highway 50 bridge downstream. If I'm reading this right, and I may be wrong, so that could be 7 bridges in a short reach of the river's passage. And it's essential that we understand both the environmental impacts of such construction and usage, and also the impact on overall project costs, which is not going to be in the EIR, but we want to be sure that we have enough money for the restoration of the river. And if building these bridges is expensive, then we might fall short of our funding ability. So in conclusion, restoring the river while revitalizing the golf course in its current SRA footprint reflect major positive directions. I hope to work cooperatively with state parks to understand and build coalitions to support the project described in the NOP. Restoration of the river while maintaining a vibrant golf function without impact on a state park unit. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Grace. I can address one of your comments in that the only activities that will occur inside of Washoe Meadows State Park will be those associating with restoring the river. It won't have, none of the activities associating with reconfiguring the golf course will be outside of the Lake Valley State Recreation Area.
Thank you. That's a great direction and answer.
Yeah, I will add to that, Grace. Yes, essentially, we need to be able to access both sides of the river to do the river restoration, and at least along the western, the north-south trending part of the river, the western half is within Washoe Meadow State Park. So that is going to have to be accessed from Washoe Meadow State Park. And then as far as the bridges go, on the proposed conceptual layout, there shows 4 bridges, 2 of which, the upstream one and the downstream one, would be shared use golf and recreation bridges, and a third, and then there are 2 alternative locations for a third golf only bridge, just depending on the final golf layout. So we would be proposing a total of 3 bridges that span the floodplain as opposed to 5, which are undersized and cause erosion.
Thank you. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Grace. Our next speaker is Lisa O'Daly. Can we unmute Lisa, please?
Hi, this is Lisa O'Daly, and first I really want to thank State Parks for reconsidering your position that an 18-hole golf course within the Lake Valley SRA unit was impossible. I really appreciate that you did not give up. So my comments right now focus on kind of what I did in pre-work for today, and that was reading the websites. And I noticed that the January 14th NOP that is available on the Sequinet website is different from the one that's on the Restore Upper Truckee website. It indicates that Army Corps is the lead NEPA agency, the one that's found on the Sequinet. I found no equivalent notice in the Federal Register from Army Corps. Is or is this not a triple document? Additionally, there was a joint TRPA CEQA NOP on the Restore Upper Truckee website. It's dated January 28th. Today is January 25th. It was not posted on TRPA's website when I checked it last night, which I found confusing. I'm glad that Shannon is here and maybe she can clarify. And Shannon, if you could also comment on the tentative schedule that was posted in today's meeting. I noticed it has a 45-day comment period on the draft document. And am I wrong to remember that the TRPA document is a 60-day comment period on an EIS? And then I'm hoping that you'll be able to clearly identify all responsible and cooperating agencies, and also identify all land ownerships outside of the 2 units of the state park system that are required for this project, including to provide equipment, storage, staging, access routes, and disposal and storage of materials. Thank you so much for letting me comment. And again, thank you to State Parks.
Thank you, Lisa. I can answer the first part of your question, then I'll turn it over to Shannon. And initially, the Army Corps of Engineers was going to be involved because they were planning to provide some funding for the project. They have since withdrawn from the process and leaving now only State Parks and TRPA as responsible agencies. So that's why we redid the notice, which is already on the TRPA website. It will go live on the CEQA Clearinghouse this Friday. And yes, there will be a 45-day comment period starting from that day. Shannon?
Yeah, thank you for your comments, Lisa. I don't believe it is on the TRPA website yet, the notice, because it hasn't officially been posted. At least I didn't put it on the website. So good homework in picking up those differences in the NOPs. The one that we put out for the TRPA notice that will be on our website and identifies that it's a joint NEPA, EIR, and TRPA EIS. So just those 2 agencies. And then it will be a 45-day comment period from January 28th till March 15th. So it's essentially extending this comment period. of the first notice that went out. And for an EIS during scoping, the requirement is 30 days. And so we're extending that by 15 days. It's during the draft EIR, EIS, public draft, that it's a longer process. So does that help clarify? I know it's a little confusing the way the notices went out. Hopefully it clears.
Hi,
And
am
Lisa,
I back?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Shannon, I was actually commenting on the tentative schedule slide that was shown at this meeting that shows a 45-day comment period in the fall on the DEIS.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah, we may have to adjust that. Thank you. Good catch.
And Lisa, just to give a little more detail, some federal agencies require NEPA if they put in federal money, not all. And the Corps is not decided on whether they are funding more projects in the basin at this time and are unable to actually put any effort into a NEPA at this time. And so we don't actually even know if we would need a NEPA in the future. It really depends on if we have federal funding and which federal agency that is. So we are moving forward with a TRPA CEQA document, but it will be prepared so that it would meet NEPA requirements, fully analyzing all alternatives equally, the environmental species consultation, the section 106, et cetera, so that if for some reason we would want to have federal funding, or that was our best option in the future, we would be able to have that adopted, I don't know, by whichever federal agency that is. But we do not have a federal partner at this time. And we're not required to have NEPA without that aspect.
Thank you, Cindy. Next speaker is Peggy McKee.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Peggy.
Okay. My name is Peggy McKee, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Sierra Club Tahoe Area Group. We have over 900 members in the Lake Tahoe area, and we are park users and lovers, and we all really appreciate that you are keeping the golf course out of the Washoe State Park. So our members are really concerned about protection of cultural, recreational, and natural resources in the park, the river, and the recreation area. And we request that the project analysis include updated surveys of these resources. We also request analysis of how sensitive environmental areas will be protected during the construction and once the project is completed. Ongoing monitoring of sensitive environmental areas would be good. It's important that the environmental report also include analysis of best practices for improving water quality, including measuring and monitoring water quality before, during, and after the project. An in-depth and rigorous evaluation of the optimum approaches for river restoration could ensure confidence in the project design. And we will be submitting additional written comments after we have reviewed all of the information presented in this meeting. Thank you.
Here's Diane Osorio.
Good evening, thank you. I'm happy to hear all the Sierra Club members here. My name is Diane Osorio. I am the Mother Lode Chapter Director for the Sierra Club. We have over 19,000 members and in 24 counties in northeastern California. We are the umbrella of over 11 distinct local Sierra Club groups. That includes Tahoe. We go through Modesto, through Yosemite, all the way to Oregon. As you know, the Sierra Club motto, or might not know, is that it's to explore, enjoy, and protect the planet. We are the oldest and largest environmental grassroots organization in the United States. The Mother Lode chapter and Sierra Club entities place a high value on California's unequal state park system, and we thank you. All Californians are truly fortunate that the system has been put into place and is maintained by the State Park Department. We applaud Sierra District and the many other park districts who steward these scarce and precious places. Our lobbying entity, also Sierra Club California, has joined us in this and has expressed concerns on items such as potential placement of golf courses within boundaries of the state park unit of Washoe Meadows. The proposed encroachment on ORV's uses on Tesla Park and the delays in implementation of environmental protection measures on Ocean Dunes Park vehicle recreational area. We have opposed all of these invasive proposals and delays in protections because we support the principle that wild and dispersed recreational value of park systems should not be infringed on by economic benefit or need for general fund revenues. We are thus extremely pleased with the project conceptual plan accompanying the notice of preparation. Restoring the river while keeping the golf course vibrant in the SRA footprint reflects major positive directions we support. We look forward to working cooperatively with the state parks to encourage this project as it is described, restoring the river without undue impacts on the park or golf course. The project description includes additional positive features, including having the clubhouse serve as a recreational gateway for additional low-impact recreation and possible increased connectivity between Lake Valley State Recreational Area and Washoe Meadows State Park. Protection of the Earth's resources and environmental justice is important to us. Wildlife and botanical surveys of the protected area and analysis of air quality impacts during and after construction will provide information that is needed to demonstrate and confirm an optimum project. In addition, analysis and information on temporary and permanent road beds for construction and maintenance of the renovated golf course, as well as specifications on an analysis of the location, sizes, uses, and the bridges to be removed and constructed are important. I really appreciate your presentation today, and we will also be submitting written comments. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you, Diane. Next speaker is Laura Patton.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Laura Patton, and I'm speaking on behalf of the League to Save Lake Tahoe. We're dedicated to protecting and restoring the environmental health, sustainability, and scenic beauty of the Lake Tahoe Basin. And in connection with our mission, we really advocate for restoration projects that address sources of fine sediment, which causes dramatic clarity loss over the last half century in the Lake Tahoe Basin. And we've worked with this entity and also other partner agencies around the lake to conduct hands-on restoration activities in meadows and streams, which includes the upper Truckee River. The system includes sensitive meadows, marsh and riparian habitats, which you've mentioned, and these habitats have become increasingly rare in the Tahoe Basin over the past century, with over half of the meadow and marsh habitats lost in the Tahoe Basin. So we just want to express our support for this project and this notice of preparation. The configuration project is one of the final pieces of restoration in the lower 9 miles of the upper Truckee River, restoring a river system that's been altered and degraded over the last century, which you've also included in your presentation today. And we look forward to working with you on the development of alternatives for restoration and mitigation measures that will advance important restoration objectives for this stretch of the Upper Truckee River while maintaining recreation opportunities for the community. We appreciate State Parks' diligence in addressing these comments and concerns on this project, and we will also be providing written comments as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. We have no more raised hands. Let me check the chat here. See if there's any questions. I have a written comment from Lori. Here's a written question from Lori as well, which I believe has been answered. Lori, if you still have questions, please raise your hand. And then from Dave Rios, will the proposed golf course footprint be smaller, larger, or the same size? It will be slightly smaller, but it will still have 18 holes and be a competitive course. I see a raised hand from a phone number, 415. Can we unmute that caller, please? Caller, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm Nancy Grauman, Director of Defensive Place, a national organization established by the late Huey Johnson, who headed California's Resources Agency in Jerry Brown's first term and later founded Resource Renewal Institute. Our mission is to fight for lands held in the public trust when private developers and even elected officials seek to break the deeds and statutes protecting those parks, preserves, and open spaces. Such was the case in 2009 when we joined the Washoe Meadows Community Campaign to save Washoe Meadows State Park, created in 1978 for its rare and irreplaceable natural resources. From being downgraded to a state recreation area to make room for the redesigned Lake Tahoe Golf Course, which, as is well known, is the prime source of the Upper Truckee's deterioration. Stripping Washoe Meadows of its legal protection set a dangerous precedent that could have decimated state parks throughout California. Hard-fought court victories and the Park Commission's 2019 declaration that the golf course must stay within the Lake Valley recreation boundaries and remain outside Washoe Meadows State Park brought relief and hope, and we are grateful. However, we remain worried for Washoe Meadows and its vulnerability to an array of potential environmental perils as the Upper Truckee restoration and golf reconfiguration plans emerge. It's easy to be apprehensive when the park's unique ecosystem was depreciated in the earliest iteration of the project, even as renowned scientists raised alarms over impacts on Washoe Meadows treasures such as rare, fragile fins. On a side note, and this is just for me, speaking for Defensive Place, I believe it is disingenuous and counterproductive for anyone to cite CEQA litigation as a cause for the project's delay, as is regrettably mentioned in a profile in the Restore Upper Truckee website. When the park's allegiance to the golf course for commercial reasons again and again and again and again trumped all. Removal of the course was, of course, one of the early possible alternatives, which, if chosen, would have placed the needed and desired transformation of the Upper Truckee onto a very fast track. Along with an EIR that will incorporate consideration of any and all impacts on Washoe Meadows, we urge that the Parks Department and Commission further secure the park's future with a long overdue general plan. Defensive Place will continue to be vigilant and productive with this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments, and we look forward to your written comments as well. I believe that's all the people that wanted to speak. If there's anybody else, please raise your hand. And I also believe we've gone through all the questions that were on the chat feature. There were a few written comments. Those will become part of the record as well. So with that, thank you very much for attending. We will repeat this meeting at 6 o'clock. You do not need to attend or make a comment again if you've already done so. But But again, thank you very much for attending. We very much appreciate it.
Anybody else have anything they would like to add?
Thank you, everyone. I'll be removing all non-hosts from the meeting. If you want to rejoin at 6, you're welcome to.